All right, guys, today we are going to talk about specific business grants, not loans, grants that are available to you as an entrepreneur. Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Back when COVID was at its height, and I'm not implying that we still don't have challenges in the United States around COVID right now, but things do appear to be getting better with announcements like Pfizer and its antiviral being successful. I think it was at 89%. We're starting to have more tools to fight COVID with. But back when COVID was at its height last year, the US government stepped in and started to provide additional capital to small business owners to help them weather the storm when the economy had sort of turned south. People weren't spending as much money. It was creating problems. One of those programs was the PPP program, very, very popular. Paycheck Protection Program. I was fortunate enough to work with some entrepreneurs to help them get that money. Through that program, the SBA lent out, it didn't grant, it lent out $780 billion worth of capital to small businesses. Now, some of that was, or a large part of that is forgivable. And so businesses have been going through that. The US government also relaxed the criteria for what's called the Emergency Injury and Disaster Loan Program, the EIDL program. So while the PPP loans are no longer available, you still can apply for the EIDL program. It's just that the EIDL is still a loan that has to be paid back. Now, there is good news as it relates to specific grants that you as an entrepreneur may qualify for. And I'm going to run through some of those. I'm going to start with some state specific grants that are available. If you don't hear me call out your state, I've got some advice here in just a second for you to follow. So don't panic if you're thinking, well, how unfair, these states or these cities have programs, mine doesn't. That may not be true. So just hang in there a little bit. So first of all, Indiana announced expanding access to what they call the Small Business Restart Grant Program. Again, these are all grants, not loans, which means you don't have to pay them back. The program has about $100 million and it's using state funding to actually accomplish the program based on what I read. You can use some of the funds through this to pay for things like payroll, insurance, and rent, which are really some of the larger expenses that a lot of businesses have. So Indiana's got a program for you from a grant perspective. Chicago, so an actual city, not just a state, but Chicago has announced in October that which is where I'm now in November, this recent October, that it's using federal funds for what they call Chi Biz Strong initiative. And through that, you can get up to $10,000 in free, meaning you don't have to pay it back, grant money for that program. So Chicago's got a program for you. So there are plenty of other states out there offering small business grants. I just didn't want to spend your time calling them all out. Here's what I want you to do. If I didn't call out your city or state, and you're looking for potential grant money, I want you to, first of all, get on Google and just do an old-fashioned search for your state grants and that kind of thing and see what you find. If that doesn't help you, there's a couple other things you can do. Call your state Department of Revenue and ask if they know about any grant programs they can point you toward. Another thing you can do is if your state or city has a small business development center, they're called SBDCs. These are Small Business Administration, lots of acronyms, SBA funded development centers. And those are nonprofits and they will work with you for free and educate you on things. And they should be aware of any grant programs that are available in your state. If those resources don't work, try calling your state chamber of commerce and ask them if they're aware of any grant programs that you could be eligible for and work with them on those types of things. So lots of states are offering grants to kind of help their businesses survive, even though we seem to be, I'm going to hope we seem to be on the back end of these challenges. Lots of states are offering grant money. So be sure you see if that type of capital is available to you. And one of the things I want to pause and say is that, $10,000 may not be a whole lot or may not carry you for a very long time, but it's still quote unquote free money. Now, the reason I keep doing the quotes, if you watch Tuesday's video, is because it takes some time and energy to actually apply for these things. It's usually not just call them and they write you a check, right? So it's not free in terms of your time, but it's something you don't have to pay back. But $10,000 is nice. It can help out. Maybe you've got a small business with 3-4 people and your payroll is $5,000 a month. This will carry you for 2 months. So can't hurt to spend some of your time and energy trying to get a hold of this grant money. Let's talk about gender specific programs. So I was actually looking for state grants in my home state of Tennessee. You can probably hear the Southern accent. And as I was doing that, I ran across a resource called Women's Net, and they do a grant where every month they give away $10,000 in grant money to a female entrepreneur. Every single month they do this. And then at the end of the year, they take all the winners of the monthly grant, so 12 of those that got $10,000, and they give away one $25,000 grant to one of those monthly winners. So you could be the lucky person through Women's Net. You could end up with $35,000 in grant money this month. Another female grant opportunity is available through what's called the WOSB, lots of acronyms in business, right? This is the Women-Owned Small Business Federal Contracting Program. So each year, the US government, it's called earmarking, sets aside 5% of all government contracts that have to be specifically granted to a female-owned and operated business, right? A female-owned and operated business. So through the WSB, you could essentially get some opportunities to win government contracts that is kind of like getting a grant, basically, just because just by being female. So some opportunities there. Next, I want to talk about small business grants for what are called disadvantaged businesses. Now, I don't set this definition. I'm just telling you the verbiage that is used. And so essentially, this is businesses that are considered socially or economically disadvantaged. I have worked with some of these certified companies in the past, and women also sort of count in this category, as do other ethnicities and things like that. So similar to the WSB program I just talked about, businesses that have received what's called an 8A certification from the government are considered socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. What does that do for you? As an 8A certified business, you're eligible to receive preferential treatment as it relates to obtaining government contracts. So you can hear the sort of synergy with the WSB, whereas that is specific strictly on female-owned and operated businesses. If you get an 8A certification and you're then considered socially and economically disadvantaged, maybe you're from a different ethnicity, you will get preferential treatment of government contracts. I used to work with a company that and do business loans for a company that had 8A status here in my home state. They were majority owned by a Hispanic woman. And when they would go up against and bid on government contracts, because of her 8A status, a lot of times, even if you couldn't be drastically more expensive, but if they bid just a little bit more, a lot of times she would win that contract over someone else who did not have the 8A certification. So a lot like getting a grant, you're sort of getting, let's call it free access to government contracts that you can win that then create revenue. And then the last two I'm going to talk to you about real quick, and I won't spend too much time here because I've covered these individually in the past, is science-based small business grants. So I've talked about SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Grants, STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer Research Grants in the past. Man, these acronyms are killing me. So one of the things to understand is that, so and as an example, I used to manage a local incubator, and inside that incubator were a lot of biotech and life sciences businesses, a whole bunch of them. And they almost exclusively were funded by SBIR or STTR grants. Now, those grants tend to go in phases. And I can remember how much effort and time and energy that those startups in the incubator had to go through in applying for various phases of funding. They would write basically very long business plans that had to, check off certain criteria for the grant they were applying for. They would spend lots of the time writing these business plans to the specific criteria that had to be done. It's an application process. It can take a lot of time. You just need to be prepared if you're going to go for some of these science-based grants and some of the others, that it's not free money in terms of not taking any time at all. So that's the thing I really want you to understand, is that just because, we're sort of starting to get past COVID, a lot of people have locked in on the PPP and EIDL programs, but you need to understand there are lots of other programs out there right now, a lot of state-based, a lot of gender-based, a lot of ethnicity-based. I didn't really address those, and these science-based if you're in the sciences. So anyways, until next time, I hope that helps. I hope you find your voice. Have a great day.